It was an incredible night, guys. We're talking December 31st, 1964, the basis for this book that you guys collaborated on. Excellent book. It is the most notorious event in terms of murders in Jefferson County, although there's been many, unfortunately, a lot of murders in Jefferson County over the years. But this one is the most prominent because one, it went to trial years after the actual date itself. It was three young people that were notoriously known for the wrong reasons. But on that night, guys, if we could start there, being in this setting as we are right now, in what was, Dan, what was the name of this restaurant again?
Red Moon Diner.
The Red Moon Diner next to the Rotary gas station.
Correct.
Which is mentioned, all of these names along Lower Court Street here are referenced in the book. And essentially, this diner, the Red Moon Diner, was the last place that all three of them were perhaps seen together. Is that correct, Dan?
That is correct.
And then from that point, they took a car drive in the Mercury, and they went over the Court Street Bridge, made a left onto West Main Street, managed to get on Bradley Street, and they went on then an on-ramp to a brand new interstate that wasn't even completed at the time, and went to the famous, what was now referred to as the Egan rest stop, about a couple miles north of Watertown, and that's where it all happened. Now, Dave, there was a lot of speculation to why they were there at the rest stop itself. Why is it? There's a lot of theories that maybe there was going to be some type of shipment going over to Canada because of our proximity to Canada. And then there was other allegations that they were just going to be brought there to be killed.
Well, police were looking at a variety of things, whether there's gambling involved or prostitution or narcotics trafficking. But what we found is that basically there was a conspiracy to get rid of the Egans, for accomplices, associates, to protect themselves from being arrested in a burglary investigation.
So there they are at the rest stop. The younger of the two Egans, Gerald Egan, is the driver. Although he didn't even want to be there that night because it's New Year's Eve and apparently he had a date, but somehow or other he was convinced to go drive to this location. Is that correct, Dan?
That is correct. He was playing pinball right next door where the Red Moon, or the Rotary gas station was located. He begged out of it, but Pete insisted he needed him that night to go along with the hijacking of the liquor truck.
So the premise was they were going to rendezvous at the rest stop, maybe perhaps meet someone from on the other side of the Canadian border. They were going to hijack a truck, and that's what they were waiting there for. Because of the casings, it is alleged that there were two guns used that night. We have three dead bodies, and two of them which were in the vehicle. That's both Peter in the passenger seat, Gerald in the driver's seat. But, and this is how it was discovered by these poor unfortunate people driving up from Rochester back to their house, or their old house rather, in St. Lawrence County. They drive by to, apparently for the man to relieve himself.
Okay, when he says action.
Jesus, Bill, what are we doing here?
I gotta take a leak!
But he notices a body lying on the ground, thinking that maybe someone's sick in need of attention.
Lady, you okay?
Notices a woman, which obviously is Barbara Egan's body. Now, not only is there a dead woman lying right adjacent to the car, perpendicular to the Mercury, but there's two dead people in there. And at that point, the J family, as we know from your book, what do they do next, Dan?
They look for places to stop, to get some help, make a phone call. They finally found a home, the Coleman.
The Coleman house, a farmhouse. Once again, it was New Year's Eve and everybody's closed down. They didn't see any phone booths, so they found this farmhouse with the lights on, and that's where they stopped.
They call the authorities, and so at that point, the authorities get involved and they converge on the actual rest stop itself. A lot of police officers at the scene. They were all taken from various parties. Again, it's New Year's Eve, and it is at any time do they think they know, even despite the fact that they're doing roadblocks up near the bridge and some areas of the county, is there any indication that they might have known who would have done this right away?
Within 2 days, or even less than 2 days, the police were questioning the very people who eventually became suspects in the case. They were very quickly pointed to a burglary ring, and they were ruling out all the other possibilities like narcotics, trafficking, gambling, prostitution. But they had a good start in the investigation, but they were having issues about developing any evidence that would bring about an immediate arrest.
So now I'm just going to jump into December 31st. And they came here that night, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Afternoon, actually.
In the afternoon, right,
Yep.
right. But this was their hangout, just like the old
they
bar.
were here all day. They came early in the morning, actually,
Right.
about 9 o'clock in the morning, and
Right.
they'd go back and forth.
Right,
Pickett was there, Joe Leone, Gerald, Peter.
right.
Barbara wasn't with them. Had the kids.
She had the kids,
Yep.
but she later dropped off the kids in various spots.
Yep.
It's a gray area, but she had curlers in her hair. She was planning on going out that night,
Yep.
but they more than likely left here, dropped off the kids at around 7, but wound up getting at the rest stop at around 7:30 up there at the rest stop.
Yeah, that's what the police say.
There had to be another car there because if you're killing 3 people, you're not walking away.
Right. James Pickett told me they drove Joe Leone's girlfriend, Nancy Johnson's car down
Right.
there.
Now, when the cops get to the site, they see the 3 Egans are dead. It probably wasn't a big surprise at that point. The Egans weren't the best people in the world. Dan.
No, the Egans made a lot of enemies everywhere they went. They were notorious thieves. Pete was a pimp. Barbara was a prostitute. Barbara was arrested 3 times in 1962. Gerald was arrested 3 times in 1962. Peter had a history of over a dozen arrests as early as 1952, I think it was, when he was 13 years old. He stole the car.
And Peter also, like I mentioned, had one leg. He lost it, I believe, in Nevada in a really bad car crash. By the time he gets back to a hospital in Syracuse, they realize he has gangrene, so they have to cut his leg off.
Right.
So at that point, it looks like he's not really going to be the tough guy anymore. But in essence, he really was. He was a fighter.
In reality, people have said that he was the first one to be out involved in a fight, and he would do well in holding his own.
No! Stop!
Hey, what the fuck? You got a problem with him?
About Barbara, shoplifting was probably her game, and she would often
Somebody help me!
in the store with her, and we've been told actually the storekeepers would order the boys would not be allowed into the stores.
So the reputation obviously wasn't really stellar. It was pretty poor.
They were well known.
We're right here because this was their place. This was their hangout. Not to mention, many of the fights that Peter, or for that matter Gerald, got involved might have taken place in the bar that's still there today.
Right across the street.
So it was noted in the book that Peter would take on maybe 1, 2, 3 people at a time and do quite well, even with one leg.
He wasn't afraid of anybody.
So what is it? We're talking about tough Irish kids, maybe not from the best background. They were brought up here, I believe, in Watertown or somewhere in Duffy Street.
Well, I know their father drank himself to death in 1963. He was 48 years old.
So the upbringing, the household, perhaps might have really had a negative association with their future activity.
A lot of alcohol flowing through the house.
It was also noted in the book, guys, that it wasn't uncommon where if you were friends with the Egans, it was a good chance that if you lived next to someone, who might have had some property to be stolen, the Egans would ultimately walk into their neighbor's house, and when the neighbors obviously weren't there, and steal money or any heirlooms in there. And that seemed to happen quite a bit with these guys.
Yes, they were prolific thieves.
Let's go back to December 20th, 1964, just a couple of weeks before the murders. It looks like at that point, this is the catalyst to what happens on New Year's Eve. They robbed the wrong house, it looks like, because there's a man by the name of Joe Leone, who, although is associated with the Egans, with their wrongdoings, discovers through the grapevine that his parents' house on Duffy Street, right here in Watertown, was robbed by Peter Egan. Is that true, Dan?
Gerald and a teenage accomplice entered the home of Anthony Leone, and they stole $760 in cash and a diamond ring.
Joe finds out about this and immediately figures that it's clearly the Egan brothers that are responsible for it. So he must have put him between a rock and a hard place, because he's friends with them, he's associated with them in terms of this alleged burglary ring. But at this point, he feels very, very slighted. This is a personal thing to him because it's his family who loses the heirloom, and I believe upwards of $756.
The Egans must have struck.
I was just gonna.
So Joe Leone at that point is very, very angry, but it makes it known, I believe, to Peter himself that on the 31st that he might be a dead man. Is that correct?
That's correct. A man named Joe Ganoski, he was a well-known businessman in Watertown. The Egans apparently robbed him on more than one occasion. They burglarized his place and stole old coins. Then Peter goes to another card game, and he starts bragging about stealing from the Ganoski. The word got back to Ganoski that Peter Egan was the one that stole his coins. So Mr. Ganoski wasn't very happy about that. He said if Peter Egan didn't have his $1,000 by December 31, he's a dead man.
That's a heck of a claim. I mean, he actually lays down the date. Is there any foundation to why he picks the 31st as a date to take him out?
I have no idea.
Just being it's the end of the year, I suppose.
So Peter at this point is a very paranoid man, leading right up to being right in this restaurant at the time, telling people that he's in a lot of trouble. He's looking for, I believe, a shotgun that very day.
Right across the street, he went running in and asked the man in there if he could borrow his sawed-off shotgun.
And did he explain why he needed the shotgun?
He just said he was very nervous and excited. He didn't stick around long.
So it's the 31st. People are expecting to celebrate the New Year's just like we do in any given year, so it's no different. That day, we mentioned it earlier, that Gerald is looking, I believe he has a date that night. He doesn't want to go off in this alleged scheme to hook up with some Canadian guy in a truck they're going to hijack. But nonetheless, he's convinced by his own brother Peter that he wants him there. Is that right?
That's right.
That's right, and another guy by the name of Joe Leone is saying, no, he doesn't have to go. He can stay home, have his date. But Peter insisted, no, he's gonna go with us.
Now, at that point, because Joe obviously is the guy that people pin as one of the two shooters,
That's correct.
He's probably setting that up as a little foreshadowing, because he wants Peter. He doesn't want Gerald or Barbara in that car at all.
That's what it looks like to us, yes.
So things don't seem to work out. You got a couple other people involved, Joe Leone and another man by the last name of Pickett. Is that correct?
Correct. James Pickett.
Now, James was a close personal friend of Joe Leone.
Yes, lifelong best friend.